now, she would see everything in a different perspective.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a short one today. We don't have Bill, and we'll go up to the hour, and then we'll have a little break, and then we'll come back to stenness on a different angle, the archaeological angle. And obviously it's going to be a lot to do with how my nasal passages hang out.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird, this thing that I've got. Lots of people are stuffy at this minute, and it's quite a strange one. And what's going to happen? They'll announce another disease and virus in the next few months, and I'll say, well, I already had it.
I think it could be bacterial, you see, because you know, because of, oh no, it's probably not. It's not bacterial, but yeah, it could be, you know. But lots of people have got it. I've got it, and it's just the nasal passages and down to about my throat.
Gandalf has got it as well.
And a sore throat, you know, but I've probably got a strep throat. But you know, I'm not ill with it.
All right. Okay. Right. Okay. We're gonna put this on the screen now, and we're gonna go to stenness. I've got some weird stories from this week with the ice. Basically, I get up on I get up on, what is it, in the about 8 o'clock on Saturday, and there's snow everywhere. Right, so what I've got to do, I go to the gritting bin, and I'm gritting on the hill. So I grit the hill, right, and it's fine. So I've done a really good job, and so I've got, but unfortunately the kill is 1 kilometer long, going all the way from the top to the bottom. Anyway, long story short, right, I eventually finish, because I do a bit every day. So yesterday morning, so I can get the car out properly, because it's been parked at the bottom of the hill. So I finished the hill yesterday morning, and I'm quite happily driving off, and I'm quite happily coming back. So I go off in the afternoon, right? I come back late, and guess what's happened? Somebody has dumped grit all down the hill.
Oh.
So in other words, I spent all these days. Yeah. But the weird thing is, right, whoever's got this grit hasn't gritted the village, which is down at the bottom of the hill, which is still like an ice skating rink.
Oh.
It goes to show how selfish people are.
Oh, right.
Anyway, if you were on Orkney, you probably wouldn't get this problem, because they don't get frost like this on Orkney. And that's where we're going now.
Right.
So are you looking at this image?
No, I'm looking at you.
Are you looking at me?
Yeah.
I thought you were looking at an image.
It's stalled. The video stalled. You know, the camera stalled.
Is it there now?
Still you.
It's Richard's fault. He keeps interfering with me. Right, okay. Right, what are you looking at now?
If you move it up, we'll probably be looking at a stone or a map. A map?
Yeah.
A map.
There it is. And that's where remember Louisa? She lives at Happy Valley. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So basically what it is, this is our wonderful Orkney. And the one thing that's being introduced to Orkney is, if we look at Orkney from a very strange point of view, and what I want to do is look at the site known as stenness, which is actually there, the word stenness, which is where we're going to actually go. Now, if we sort of orientate that again, and what we are going to do is we're going to look at this island and we're going to say Kirkwall there.
I'm gonna get my phone.
We're going to go to stenness and we're zooming in on stenness. I don't even know why Anne has to get a phone. And there is the standing stones of stenness, right? So stenness, standing stones of stenness, and that's where we're going to go today. So what it is, we've got an archaeology class after this, looking at the archaeology of stenness and the stones and what they mean. But following the sense of landscape and interpretation, one thing came up on Tuesday a few times. It's the word interpretation. It's the sense of landscape. It's the sense of what's there now is what is there now, always been there, right? And what changes have been seen in the landscape, right? And this is sort of trying to understand history in a pseudo presented, complex but understanding way. So I gotta basically ask the two of you, have any of you ever been to Orkney?
No.
I've
No?
never been to Scotland even.
Oh, you don't know what you're missing. Battered haggis, battered Mars bars, chips, grease everywhere. Love it. No, that's not Scotland. Scotland is an absolutely beautiful place. The people are really, really nice. The food's nice. But Orkney is very, very different. And the people of Orkney feel and seem and project themselves as very, very different. And that sort of points you into a sense of culture and a sense of understanding within the landscape. And obviously looking at the idea of the landscape, trying to understand the landscape, and that's where we are. Now, again, what I just said as you were off, Anne, was that because this is quite a short session today, and we've got a more expanded session about the standing stones of stenness and the history and archaeology. So, as I said, this thing that came up on Tuesday was how we see the world, how we see the landscape, how we see and how the interpretation of the landscape has been seen over different periods and ages. And first things first, when you shoot somebody, not physically, but shoot somebody mentally, you basically say Stonehenge, right? So when you say Stonehenge, and is that telling you that Stonehenge is an ancient name? Just give me a quick answer. No, you're delaying your answer, Anne. Avebury, is that an ancient name?
I think henge is an ancient name.
No, you're overdoing it.
Oh.
No, what? No, right, okay, right. Okay, let's try this a different way, right? When you say Orkney, what does it conjure up? Just shoot out what it says. What's in your mind quickly?
Crab. Crabs. Seafood.
Yeah, nice. Richard, go for it. Don't think.
Just always seems a pretty cold place to me.
Have you ever been there? No. So how do you know it's cold? And have you ever been to Orkney? How do you know there's crabs there and fish? Right.
Well,
So,
yeah, I know that because they're
now. Right, now go back to this. Right, go back to this. And when I chuck the name York at you, what do you think of?
When you say the name Orkney, it reminds me of my grandfather who went to Orkney to turn all the signs around because it was a strategic post in the war.
Yes.
It was near where the submarine was. What's the name of it?
Yes, there was. Scarpa Flow, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what we're doing, what we just done, we built up images of places, right? And this is what names conjure up, right? I'm gonna come up with something else, right? I know none of you have been there, and I'm gonna presume, right? Richard, say something about Shetland now. Go for it.
Oh,
You're
he's turned
thinking.
himself off.
Right, keep yourself on, Richard. This is a fast fire thing. And when I say Shetland, what do you think of? Just the first thing in your head.
Kirkwall.
No, Kirkwall's on Orkney. However, no.
You said Shetland. Oh, sorry. Shetland.
What? No.
Ponies.
Yeah, nice ponies, right? And now that's a really interesting one. And what we can do is come back to this next week. It's not a problem if we don't really get through and we try to make sense of what I'm trying to get at. Basically, whenever I've got okay, then I'm gonna pick on you, Anne. I've got 6 Shetland. What are they?
Sheep.
Right. Most people think they're horses.
Yeah.
Shetland
sheep. Yeah, you're right. Shetland sheep.
Yeah, but most people think Shetland horses. When
Yeah.
I said to somebody, I've got 6 Shetland, and I said sheep. They didn't get the sheep thing. They just said, oh, you got, where did you get 3 grand from? And I thought, right, okay. And then I continued on with the conversation because I thought he was talking about Shetland sheep, right? Each of our sheep cost 40 quid. They didn't cost £500 with Shetland horses do.
No.
Right, there's a point to this.
Yeah.
Right, there's a point to this. Right, the name Standing Stones of Stenness, what does that conjure up quickly, Anne? Stop thinking.
Rock?
Yes, right. Richard, what does that conjure up in your mind? Why has he got his mic off? Right, okay. So the one point I'm trying to get at, right, is that I've chucked it, right, you said stones, right? Stenness, what is that an old name?
I would think it's the name of the area.
Right, that's because it's got there the name of the area, yes. However, this is really, really interesting because when you think of the past and it says Standing Stones of Stenness, you always expect to see stones standing at Stenness, right? And you then start to think of Stonehenge. You start to think of Avebury, right? But they might not necessarily have had exactly the same meaning. They may have had very, very different meanings. So what we're doing now is very, very different from what I'll be doing later on today. But however, Standing Stones of Stenness, the word Stenness, for me, I initially, when I was explaining about the name Stenness, I basically said, look, the name Stenness means beginning or start of. The evolution sort of stone, you know, it's the beginning. But that's a bit sort of convoluted, right? Because sten is basically the name Stain, right? Which means stone or embankment, because we got Stane Street, that was the original road that was where Hadrian's Wall is today, right? Bank, stone, stain. And the word stain is not a Roman word. It's actually a Norman, I keep saying Norman, it's actually a Norwegian word. Stain, stone is Norwegian, right? So immediately, what you do is you remove the word Stenness to try to get into understanding what this site is, right? So the words standing stones are very descriptive because they are standing stones. Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, it's today, it's just a little thing about trying to interpret how people think about the landscape and how misinterpretations are made about the landscape, how people get scared about the landscape, how people get things wrong about the landscape. I actually indulged myself earlier on for 12 minutes. I actually had a break, which is unusual for me. And I watched this guy who visits Second World War bunkers in Germany and Poland and Czechoslovakia, right? And today the video that he showed, he went there about a month ago. He showed where he went into a Second World War bunker built by the Germans. Right now, as I'm watching this, I've got images in my head of what I think we're going to see, and basically it's all made of concrete. And I'm thinking, right, you go at one level, right, and then that's it. Well, actually, it's 3 levels, and the level that he went into was actually the 3rd floor. And I thought, okay. And then what we started to do is start to see that the lines inside this building were mainly timber lined. It was odd that we got a concrete building and all timber lined, and there's electrics and all the rest of it still in it. None of it's operational. However, my impression of this building, it would be very cold and very military, but it was actually very homely. There was a lot of woodwork in there, and it was very, very odd seeing this. So my interpretation was wrong, and this is how our interpretations can be wrong. And this is a building that was operational just over 70 odd years ago. The standing stones at Stenness probably date back to between 6,000 and 5,500 years ago. So let's have a little look at some of the images and try to sort of make a little bit bog standard sense of this. Right, so what we've got is, no, this is the Ring of Brodgar, and that's another thing. That this is deliberate, by the way. That's the Ring of Brodgar. That's not the Ring of Stenness, right? But you could be looking at it and thinking, oh, they're nice stones. That's really nice. That's really nice Stenness, but that's not Stenness at all, right? Stenness, that's not Stenness.
No.
That is the Ring of Brodgar.
Oh.
So, what we've done, what's happened here, we've already seen the past interpreted wrongly because of the wrong image actually being used. So hopefully, there we go. So what we've got now, before you see how many standing stones are there, yeah, there's 3 whopping standing stones. There's one over here. There's another one over there. There's 2 there, and you're thinking, right, it's a standing stone circle, so there must have been more in the past. Was there more in the past? Now, this is a fault of history, right? When we think of the past, we always think the past is complete. We always think the past is a complete stage, because when you say, for example, I've been to theatre productions, right? I went to oh God, what's that film? That really thing about it's got the name Pigs in it. You know the one, Anne? Was it by Orson Welles? Go on.
Oh, got the name Hate in it?
No, no, it's got the word pig in it. No,
Oh.
Lord of the Flies. There was no Pigsy
Oh,
with
yeah.
it. Have you ever seen the film Lord of the Flies on a desert
Yeah.
island?
Yes.
Right. I went to see a stage performance of the Lord of the Flies, right? And there was hardly any props on the stage at all. And to say I was disappointed is an understatement. But at that stage, I didn't understand. I really didn't understand that it's my interpretation and it's their interpretation, right? So I immediately thought that there would be sand on the stage and there would be like trees and like, like it was at the Millennium Centre in Cardiff. I thought more, but it wasn't. It was some. But I actually came away with something. I actually came away with other images when I came back. My images were actually quite sound when I came back. Now, what we do when we look at history is we try to have images which we build up a bank of images, and we go to places we're either really surprised or we're really disappointed. It's like going on a first date, right? Sometimes when we go on a first date, we've got this high expectation of somebody, and they're either not what we expected or they're somebody else that we expected. It's all about
preconceived ideas. We always seem to make a map inside our head so that we know we don't want to be shocked. You know, we want it to conform to what we expect. You
And
know,
unfortunately, exactly.
conform to our expectations, you know, and if it doesn't, there's a imbalance there. There's a, you know, and it unsettles you. And yeah.
And do you know what? Right, I'm pretty good at saying things, saying that I got things wrong, and I'm pretty good at saying that I've made mistakes. And I got to tell you, Richard knows what I'm like, but Richard knows that I do make mistakes, and I admit them because Richard knows about a certain thing about a certain lane that I was convinced of, and then eventually we worked out that a certain lane was something else. Richard knows what I'm talking about, and Richard knows full well that I'll say that, you know, I got it wrong. However, about another event years and years and years ago, I went with a local historian to visit a Roman marching camp at a place called Pennacoidca, which is near, well, between Llantryston and Pontypridd. It's a place called Pennacoidca, right? And it's actually mentioned in my Romans in South Wales and Romans in the Vale of Glamorgan and so on. And when I initially went there, I saw this ditch in a field, and I thought, oh, right, that over there has got to be the ditch for the camp, right? So we met a reporter, and I said to the reporter, this is the ditch for the camp. And it went in a newspaper, and that was it. That was the story. 2 months later, right? 2 months later, we took a group of people there to show them this ditch. And as I'm saying, this is the ditch of the fort, somebody's shaking their head and saying, no, it's not. And I thought, oh, right, it's got to be the ditch for the fort, right? And then he took us into another field, and there was not only a ditch for a fort, there was a bank, right? And the bank for this fort was about 2 or 3 meters tall, right? How could I miss it? Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. It wasn't actually 2 or 3 meters tall at all. It's how embarrassed I was. It wasn't, it was actually millimeters tall, right? It wasn't tall at all, but it was a bank and a ditch. The bank and the ditch was about, I don't know, 100 meters on. I'd got the wrong location, right? And then I remember feeling so embarrassed, and another historian come along and called Brian Davis, and he said, Karl, just, you've made a mistake, shut up. Just don't make it any worse, right? And for the rest of the day, my head was in turmoil. I'd made a mistake. I had cocked up. I had really screwed up, right? So years later, there's myself and there's a couple of others, right? And we go to this place, right? And I want to undo my mistakes, and I can't find this bank and ditch. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, use the original ditch that I got wrong, and further on there's another ditch and a bank, right? And I was looking for something that was meters high. My mind had made this bank so big because I thought it was such a big mistake, right? That when I actually looked at the map and said, oh, like that little bank over there and the ditch, and I told them all this bank was huge, right? But it never was huge in the first place. It was the gravity of my mistake that made the bank huge, and it was the gravity of the mistake that made the ditch huge. And then what you're doing is what you've got to do is take a step back from these things and actually really try to understand that there's so much. Moving away from the Pennacoidca mistake, there's so much, back to stenness, there's so much that we can say about history and archaeology, but we've also always got to be prepared to say that we've made mistakes. And if we've made mistakes, we've got to try and not get out of those mistakes, but just say they're mistakes, right? And one interesting thing I did on Tuesday, I realized that I'd come on a long way from making those types of mistakes. I still make mistakes, but I've come a long way from sort of understanding. So and I'm gonna show you what I mean now. So what we've got here, we've got that. Now, what I've done, I've got my notes, right? And I'm reading, I'm showing this on Tuesday. And I'm saying, what can we see? Right? There's a ditch. And these little grey things, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 4, and 6 are post holes, right? 2, 3, 5, and 7 are standing stones, right?
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
if we go back to that image that we just had there, you can clearly see 1, 2, 3 standing stones and that little standing stone there. So if we go back to that image, we can understand what's going on. And those 3 stones there are actually 2 upright stones and a stone lying flat, which is the one in front. Now, when I'm describing what this image means, without having read completely through the notes, it turns out that my assessment was right anyway, right? And what I was saying was that I believe that some of these stones have been mucked around with, right? Probably those 3 that are on the ground. And that means that interpreting the site gets very, very difficult, because when somebody's trying to explain what this site is about, you have got the problem of looking at this and trying to work out, is what you're seeing up there standing at night 120 odd years ago, right? The answer is no, because in 1905, one of those standing stones was re-erected. So what you're seeing now is very, very different from what there was 120 years ago. So even the name stenness is not the original name. Even the stones that you're looking at were not the stones that you may have been seeing 120 years ago. And back in December 1814, that stone there was pollarded by the local landowner Mackay. And what he was going to do, he was going to knock all these standing stones down. He had bought the land. He was sick of tourists coming to the land. So he's going to knock all the standing stones down. And then basically the islanders ganged up on him and basically said, don't do this anymore, because we're really going to sort you out. He was a ferry loper. Basically, a ferry loper is somebody that goes onto the island who isn't born on the island, right? Now, as much as I absolutely love Orkney, and I would love to feel that I was an Orcadian, right? I'm a ferry loper, right? I am clear, but the worst of the worst ferry lopers are English ferry lopers, right? Because they seemingly see the landscape as alien to the Orcadians. But what is even worse than an Englishman on Orkney is a Scotsman, because Mackay was a Scotsman. Weirdly enough, Anne, right? It might seem odd, but Orkney and Shetland, if they could do their own thing, they would be independent. And if you this is politics now. If you look at a map of Orkney, in the I gotta get my elections right, Anne. It was 2015 where the SNP took practically every single seat in Scotland, and the seats that they didn't take, right, were was Orkney. It remained Liberal Democrat. Because the Orcadians see themselves as very different, and what the Orcadians have resented. Forget the English bit now. That was more of a jest, actually. But what the Orcadians resent more than anything is Scotsmen coming onto the island, rich Scots landowners, and basically telling Orcadians what they should and they shan't do. Right? And they're very sort of anti that. And this guy Mackay changed the landscape.
Was it Mackay or Mackay?
Mackay,
Mackay.
not Mackay, Mackay,
Mm.
Mackay, 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 not Mackay, Mackay. And the one thing that all the stories about this landscape is always somebody coming along giving their own take on it, and it's not necessarily the right take.
No.
Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you another plan in a minute, and you'll understand what I'm exactly talking about. And I'll give you the date of this plan, but we're not going to do that in a minute. What I'm going to do, we're going to look at another image, right? And this here, we don't really know whether that's always looked like that.
No.
Right. And that slab in front is undoubtedly broken off from that stone there that was broken down by Mackay in 1814. So, but when we did go there, we were told that there's been lots of changes and lots of things going bump in the night, right? But when we went there with the archaeologist Martin Carruthers, I couldn't get his name there. I thought it was McCruthers. Martin Carruthers. You've done that to me, Anne. You put an M in front of everything. Martin Carruthers. When we went there and we met Martin Carruthers, right? He mentioned something to us about the meaning of these standing stones, the three that you can actually clearly see. And he basically said the answer to the plan that we're going to look at and the other plan I wanted you to see before we have our break and we go on to the other bit of the class, and then will all come together, right? But we're obviously trying to follow the line and trying to understand this, right? So you're looking at that, right? He believes that each of these upright stones represents an individual family, right? So he focused on these three upright stones, and basically that stone that's broken off, and there's the bit on the floor, right? So then what we then do is we turn to this, and we basically said, right, okay, you can't really see a ditch around it anymore, but that would have been a ditch, and on the outside of that would have been a bank. Right, so it would have been a little henge monument. This is believed to be one of the earliest stone circle sites and henge monuments in the whole of Britain. Earlier than Stonehenge, earlier than Avebury, earlier than Castlereagh, you know, early, right? But the thing that is obvious is that there are only three big standing stones there, and these sort of four indicated, one lying recumbent on the ground, which is that grouping of three. And number 7 has been snapped off, and number 5 has been re-erected. And how do we know number 5 has been re-erected? Well, we'll come to that now. So what's going on with 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 4, and 6, and 12? God, that's a small stone, isn't it? What Martin didn't do was to say that in those ones, 8, 9, or whatever, he didn't say that there were ever stones in them. Right, he didn't need to. I don't think there ever was either. If that's what he was thinking, maybe he does think that now, or maybe he doesn't. Let's not put words in his mouth. But this is about me saying it, right? So this is the point. The past does not need to be complete, because in many ways the past may never have been complete. There's a cathedral still being built in Spain, and it's taken 100 years, and they haven't even completed it yet.
No.
Can you remind us which cathedral that is, Anne?
Barcelona, but I don't know the name of the cathedral.
And the fact of the matter is, will that ever be complete?
Yeah.
It's Gaudi, isn't it?
By Gaudi, yeah.
Yeah, it's Gaudi.
Well, of course, he's dead now, but...
Yeah, but the point is...
but they're still working on it, you know. Yeah.
is it exactly the same plan? Did Gaudi envisage that there would be electricity in it? No. Did he envisage
No,
that there might be
no.
solar panels on it? No. You know, it's
Yeah.
not whatever happens to Gaudi's cathedral,
Mm.
and whether it takes another 50 years, is not going to be the same cathedral that he said he wanted it to be built in the first place. Right?
No.
It's not going to be, right? So why in that, now that we understand that, why do we need to know whether or not there were stones in these other holes or not? What if there were bits of timber in them, right? What if they were just empty holes in the ground? You know, digging a hole into a rock is an achievement anyway, right? I tell you what, right? You know, we've dug a pond here, right? And it took a while because it's solid rock. You know, lids of rock, you've got to smash through it with a mattock and hammers and shovels and bang the bloody thing, right? So it's not a couple of minutes work. So, and then you put a plastic sheet in it, obviously a membrane, plastic sheet, whatever, and you put water in it. Now, wouldn't our ancestors think that was very strange? They would. Basically, what we've done, we've spent hours digging a hole in the ground, right? 2 people, and then we filled it with the plastic liner and water. And our ancestors might think that was odd. Well, we're putting fish in it, or we're putting reeds in it, or it's a duck pond, or it's for the sheep to drink out of, whatever, right? We didn't have sheep when we actually originally dug the hole. But the point is that the whole point with all of this is that just because we got preconceptions today doesn't need to be that they have to be the same preconceptions for what people did in the past. And you don't always need to fill these holes with the evidence, with things. You don't need to, right?
Personally, yeah.
Yeah, we can't have our own diatribe on it. So, for example, right, we always presume, right? I did it earlier on, Anne, right? And I'm not going to apologise because maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But I asked you the question. I said, well, is your daughter ever going to have children? Right? Well, it's like that societal idea that our children are then going to have children. Well, my daughter Bethan, I can't see her having children this side of 30, even if she ever has them. Emily's off her head on another planet, so I don't know what she's going to do. Kerry Ann's very unlikely because
they're not interested in. No, they're not. They're not ready. They're not. Well, we weren't ready either, but it was just more acceptable. But now it's 40. People are having kids.
Richard's got 2 children, and only one of them has had children. So, you know, it's like a 50-50 thing. You know, whether, you know, people's perceptions of whether you're male, female, gay, straight, whatever you are, you have to fit into certain boxes, but you don't have to. You know, for example, people who are gay, they can have children themselves now through various different means, right? And that to somebody back then may have been odd, or was it odd to them back then? Because, you know, this is the thing, we always feel, and this is another point, Anne, right, Richard, we always think that people in the past would feel and judge us, right? That we feel we judge them, and then we put it the other way around, and we think that then they're going to judge us. Yeah, how would people feel in the past about how we live, right? And then in a reaction to this, we've always got to think, oh, right, actually, our defense is what we feel that this monument is going to be, what this monument is about, how this monument speaks to us, how it tries to own the narrative, right? So I'm just going to, there's nobody else joined us yet, is there?
I don't think so. No.
Oh, fair enough. I think you've upset them all, Anne, from last week.
Oh dear.
But what we are going to do now is we're going to show you that image that I wanted to show you, right? Now, if we go back, right, and what there is, right, there it is on the left. Oh, hang on, what's happened now? Where's my thing gone? Oh, God, it's all gone. Now it's on the right, right? So we're going to look at that one there, right? Again, interpretation. The one on the right is the Ring of Brodgar. The one on the left is stenness. That's stenness, right? Ring of Brodgar again. Ring of Brodgar. Stenness. 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 In some ways, again, Ring of Brodgar, stenness, stenness, Ring of Brodgar. So again, you know, you can easily get things wrong, and it's a problem of how we run into things occasionally. You know, wars have been started because somebody said the wrong thing. You know, the biggest example of one of the biggest mistakes in history was people having alliances in the First World War. If Germany had had no alliance with Austria and Hungary, it would have never entered the war on Austria-Hungary's side. Britain would have never then entered the First World War. France would never have entered the First World War. Austria and Hungary would have thrashed it out with Serbia. Russia would have invaded Austria and Hungary, but Germany would have just said, oh, right, fair enough, we'll let them get on with it, right? But the fact of the matter is, simple things and simple mistakes and simple ideas and simple sort of things can change this narrative in a big way. Just like that, me seeing Lord of the Flies that day, I had the wrong perception. You know, my daughter dragged me along to see Wicked, and I thought, right, all right, and I just thought, oh, I've forgotten their name now. The lead wasn't there that day, and it turned out to be Kerry Ellis. And I tell you what, I fell in love with Kerry Ellis's singing, and I absolutely love Wicked. I loved spending time with my daughter, but I loved watching Wicked on stage being performed. It was brilliant, right?
Yeah.
But if I'd have gone with another perceived idea, and I didn't have the surprise of seeing Kerry Ellis, right, I may have been disappointed. So sometimes we need to go into history and archaeology with an open mind and an open heart and an open idea.
Well, I always do. I always do, really, because it's like they're so strange. The standing stones and the mounds and everything is just so not like now, that you do have to just accept it, accept that's, but with the proviso that that people could have changed it over the years, and it's only like the post holes and the mound, maybe it's only the ring and the mounds that actually are authentic, and the holes.
It's this sort of wrong sense of preconceived ideas of the past. So many. I look around where I am, and you can look around where you are, and there's something that I must say before we do this, right? I've said this to you before. I have driven through landscapes, and people say that's an ancient woodland, or that's this and that's that and whatever, right? And you think, no, it's not. Even driving through Savanac Forest, they've got a bloody road going through the forest, and you've got the big old oak on the side of the road, and he's been there for 1,000, 200, 1,300, maybe 1,500 years, and you think, right, okay, that's really old, right? Now, you can only go as far back as that tree in that moment to understand that moment in history. What was there before that tree? And then your history starts again, trying to interpret how the landscape was, how the harvester is again. So there's that sort of backdrop, that raison d'etre within the landscape. Do you know, one thing I want to say before I got onto this, right? And nobody else is joining us by the looks of it. when I never had to say what I'm about to say, right? By the way, Anne, good old Robert Bellamy sent me a Christmas present and a card, so I've got to send him a
Oh,
postcard.
that's
I've got a
lovely.
postcard. So anyway,
I had a text from him.
I've sent him a postcard. I am so.
I had a Christmas text.
I'm glad you did. Right. Robert came on one or two of our walks. I know he went to the one down in Colwinston, and George was on that one as well. And we were going past this house, and this person invited us into this house. Were you on that one?
I don't think so. No.
Anyway, long story short.
Oh yes,
right,
yes, of course I did. Yes. Yeah, we
now, Anne, I always gave the impression I knew exactly what I was talking about, exactly knew where we were going, and I'd done research. Right now, I may have known what I was talking about, but I had never done any research on any of these places that we went to on those walks. But they always turned out as if we did. And we had a map, and I would say we're going to go to X, Y, and Z, right? And it would always work out. You know, I wasn't winging it, because I never made the pretense that I'd ever been there, and I'd never made the pretense that I'd ever, we went to these places basically every single Friday, 80% of the time throughout the year. Yeah, we did.
And we went into a house that was being renovated or reconstructed.
It was great.
It was really good. Yeah.
It was good. And the thing was, you see, the point is that because we went in with our eyes open, we were able to interpret the landscape. And it was so good. We would have long discussions. And I tell you what, nobody could argue what was right or wrong, because not even the guy taking you there knew what was right or wrong, except his interpretation, which was my interpretation, or the householders' interpretations. And it worked. But Anne and Richard, something went wrong, and I decided not to do them anymore. And it's to do with technology. I went to Flemingston this one day, right? And there was two people from our old Barry class. It was Stuart and Cheryl, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Flemingston. We didn't do the Friday mornings anymore, because that had finished a couple of years earlier. That was to do with my Lisa and the children and whatever. So
yeah,
that stuff in the morning finished. Well, what I did with Cheryl and Stuart was that when things started to get back together again, I thought, right, we can't do this thing on a Friday morning. So I used to go out on a Friday evening. So we went to Flemingston this one day, right? And I said, and we went into a field of a deserted village, and there was humps and bumps in a field, and we were just about to go to a bridge. And as I'm talking away quite happily, Cheryl looks at her phone, and she said she had a GPS on her phone, and it was when they had launched the GPS thing, and she started saying, oh, but there's this and that about the place. And I thought, that's it, because it stopped discussion.
Yeah,
because it had to be about what she had on her phone, and it ruined it. It smashed it. And then I thought, right, I didn't understand what was going on, because I was a bit of a shock, because technology had suddenly wrecked it. And then we went to the bridge, and I managed to recover myself at the bridge. And on the way back, I thought, I can't do this anymore, because it's we can't have that discussion.
no.
And that was it. We just couldn't do it. Anyway, so what we can do, keep going now, is that I don't think anybody else is going to join us now. So what I am going to do is that I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going. And I want to look at this image. And the image is there. Now, what have we got on that plan? Right. Oh, right. Okay. Right. Just try and work this out. Right. So we have We have 1, 2, C and D are those upright stones, right? And do you know when we went over to B and I said that stone has been re-erected? Yeah,
Yes.
that's been re-erected, right? So what we then need to do is, if we look at this map, what you can clearly see is there's that there that is the stone that I believe was broken off from that one on the left. But what the hell is that? What's that one there? Because if you go off this now, if I go back off this and you type in stenness, and you go back a bit, and you stenness plans, right? So in other words, there's something else gone wrong, right? There's something else gone wrong. Something has been taken away. There's something missing.
Yeah.
Somebody's mucked around with the past. Something has gone missing. So what we have, right, is, there you go. It's gone. In 8 is gone. 8 isn't there, right? So if we actually Goff has just joined us, so he can come in, because this is actually going to be the lecture anyway. So but obviously the history and archaeology stuff on it. So I'm gonna bring Goff in, right? And I'm just gonna, and then we're gonna wing into the next lecture. So we got to keep that point a minute. If I could get Goff on a minute, let's not overcomplicate this. And right, so let's not overcomplicate this. Goff will slowly flow into this now, so that'll be fine. Anyway, thanks for joining us, Goff. We are actually doing the previous lecture, but the previous lecture is actually part of this lecture anyway. So
okay,
Goff, this is flowing, because what I was going to do is flow this in, and it's worked out okay. So
it's not
so-
Neolithic though, is it?
this is Neolithic.
Oh, it is Neolithic. Oh, that's all right then.
Yes, it is.
That's all right then.
So when we actually come to this plan, so we've got C, D, and we've got the 1B, which is the one stone that is being thrown down, right? We've got that one there, and that's related to that stone there. And you can see 1, 2, 3 stones, and you can see a 4th one. So those are not, 2 of those stones are actually not on the plan, the later plan that we've got today, right? So in other words, what's happened with the site has altered massively, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to end on this point now, and the point that we end on is going to bring us into the lecture that we are doing in a few minutes, which is quite a good way of doing it. So this plan itself, rather interestingly enough, this plan of the site of Stenness, there is the date, 1851, right? And interesting enough, what somebody said, they said, oh God, I don't really understand what's going on, because, what they've done, they've aligned the stones. Instead of being a circle, they've aligned them in that way, right? So it makes it a bit askew for us. But what has happened is that between 1851 and 1905, and between 1905 and today, there are stones that have altered and had their locations changed. And which is quite upsetting, because it takes away the gravity and meaning of such a wonderful archaeological resource. So what we are going to do, we're going to finish that part of the lecture there, and then this image will launch us to continue. So at that moment, what I'm going to do is quickly, I'm going to ask Richard Are you going to continue, Richard? Are you going to? What we could do is have a little question and answer thing, and this will bring Goff on board now. So let's sort of take it away from the images, and let's see if Richard has anything he would like to say. Go on, Richard. Is there anything you'd like to say, darling?
Well, it's just a lot of these stones, how much erosion's taken place over 5,000 years, and sort of caused these stones to virtually disappear, break up into little bits, and the old farmer comes along and thinks, oh, that would be handy in my barn.
You're saying all the right stuff. You're saying all the stuff that you've just said actually is the stuff that we're going to be talking about, which is great. So this is absolutely great. And the other thing as well is that one Tuesday, the Ring of Stenness, when we did the Ring of Stenness on Tuesday, you know, it was another long one, and it went on for 2 hours, 10 minutes, and fair enough. And one of the things I can remember saying, I didn't say it this way, but I'm going to say it.
Oh, I was just going to make a cup of coffee.
Oh no, we can have the cup of coffee when we work out what Richard's doing in a moment. When is a standing stone a standing stone, right? Because this is now into the next bit. On Dartmoor and Bodmin Moor, down in the old southwest of our wonderful noble land, they've started finding the tops of standing stones in upland areas. And you start to think, well, what's Carl told us about upland areas? Well, since the Bronze Age, the soil in the upland areas, because climate temperature is reduced, those upland areas, the rich soil has been eroded because the trees have been removed, right? Revealing the bedrock, meaning that you can't sort of plant trees and you can't have lots of soil and lots of crops. So how are we getting standing stones, therefore, only the tops being revealed in places like Bodmin Moor and Dartmoor? And the answer is that they were always covered up in the first place. And therefore, how are they standing stones when they're covered up? And they've always been covered up and they're buried. Do you see the point I'm trying to make?
No, I was
back to the descriptor at the beginning, right? When we mentioned the standing stones of Stenness on Orkney, right? When they are stones that are sticking up. But Richard's point being that a lot of erosion has taken place. How much of these stones were actually surrounded in more soil? Is obviously the ground level's higher. It must have been higher back then because the ditch around the standing stones of Stenness has now since been filled in by the soil. Where's that soil come from? The mound that was created. However, equally, some of the soil from around the stones must have eroded into the ditches, and there's erosion on the stones themselves. Anne?
Well, what I was going to say was the stones on Orkney, they are of a particular type, as you say, they're bedrock, really. They're
sandstone, yeah.
It's that sort of stone that is in layers, you know, it's almost like mudstone, but it's not mudstone, but that sort of.
Yeah, it was in layers, yeah.
Layering, you know. And
yes.
And there's a guy in Caerphilly, on Caerphilly Mountain, and he's discovering the same rock, you know. He's discovering the same rock. And of course it is formed in very unusual shapes. And they think it might be attached to mythology and that, you know, or that the locals might have created mythology out of it. So I'm thinking, yes, that's what's happening. You've got this stone up on the uplands, and it's been utilized, you know, in some way, maybe a long time ago, or maybe not so long ago.
And the thing is,
Yeah,
The-
maybe
the-
like 500 years or 5,000 years ago. It's not so long ago. It's
there's-
after glaciation, isn't it?
Yes,
It's like,
some of these stones have bioglaciation, but all the ones on, well, the ones that I know of on Orkney, well, not all of them, but most of them are obviously the stones that you can actually see easily quarried. But there would be a lot of erosion.
right.
Right. Okay. So what I could do is ask Richard, are you staying with us? Or are you leaving us?
I can hang around for about another half an hour.
Okay, then. Well, what we're going to do is, if Richard and Goff has a quick chat, and then I'm just going to get a drink in front of me, and Anne's going to get a coffee. So go on, toodaloo,
Right.
quickly.
Yeah.
And whilst I'm going to, before I go and get my drink, Goff, are you? Did you get that email off me?
No, because I only just come in this minute now, so I've missed everything. So I'll check my emails. But go and have your coffee.
Yeah, you talked to Richard about the cricket. He's really bowled over by LBW.
I'll just check my emails.
La la la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Oh, Tommy, oh, Tommy, oh, Tommy, oh, Tommy, oh, Tommy, oh, Tommy. I gotta remember to tell you about Tommy. Oh, la la la, la 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 la. It were a long time ago.
Okay, I got your email. That's fine.
I did it especially for her.
Yeah. That's great. That'll do.
La la doo doo. With a drunken sailor. What do you do with a drunken sailor? I'm gonna have a coffee thanks to the SS. Did I just say the SS? No, I meant the SAS. Christ. Don't worry, Goff. I'm not going on.
Right, gentle food and nice.
La 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 la. Hello, you're Mr. Langford, yes. We've had reports that you're insane.
Yeah.
We've got to cart you away to a lunatic asylum.
I don't know how you've managed to speak. I can't help it.
Apparently, there's a woman there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The question is, Richard, right? Don't implicate yourself, right? And I know she's probably watching, right? But who is more nuttier, Kate or me?
I think I'd go for Kate.
I think that's what was.
Hmm. Do you know what, right? I think I've met my match with Kate. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with her. And do you know what? I think Kate would be impressed with that one. But then, who is a close second, me or Ruth?
Just before we left, we managed to get a phone call.
Oh, I think it's got to be you.
They phoned us.
Right. Okay, then. Right now, we've decided me. Right.
Man was going to do it.
Based on averages, right?
She mixed all right.
Did Kathy go a bit nuts when she went to your house? Was she doing the house inspection bit?
No, she was
All right.
quite happy just to sit in here.
All right.
Yeah.
How's my beautiful Pauline?
Well, if you feel up to it on Saturday, right?
Oh, come on.
Give my love to Pauline, Richard.
Yeah, she's here.
Hi,
How you doing, darling?
No.
very well, thank you.
Are you coping with the bloody cold?
Yes, I'm doing all right.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
we haven't been anywhere. It's been nice and warm, yeah.
Ah, right. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, okay then. Okay. All the best.
I know what you mean.
Bye. Bye.
I think Kathy. I think Kathy, Richard was quite keen on the idea of not going down to the studio for a while because she reckons it's too cold. I
Yeah,
have
it would have been a
continued
bit, would have been a bit fresh down there, I think.
to fresh. Look at that. I have actually continued painting in the.
Oh,
I had to paint over the bloody pink stuff.
no.
Can you believe that? We paint the bloody walls pink because if by painting it pink, it goes white. I'm not going to go there. I still don't understand.
I do remember that pink coming out.
Do you?
Mm-hmm. But I don't think it was around for long.
All right.
But I can remember them bringing out this paint.
My
Right.
friend always says that. She phones me on a Thursday and she says, "Oh heck, you're doing your archaeology, aren't you?" She does it every week. Oh heck.
Who's this? Your beautiful daughter?
No, oh Mommy's got really short hair now. Oh, I have got a picture.
I hope she does it. I'll go and show it to me then.
Can you see?
Hang on a minute. Oh wow, is that a bloke?
Yeah.
Oh wow. He looks very mature. How old is he? Age difference?
He hasn't got any hair.
What's the age difference?
8 years, 9 years, 8 years.
That's not much, is it? How old's Mary?
He's 46 and she's 39.
He looks older than 46.
I know. No, actually, that's not a very good photo of him.
No.
It's a lovely photo of Mari because she's got a vintage dress on, but it's velvet, you know. but I'll try and show you a better one of him. He's got tattoos and earrings.
Well, Goff has got tattoos and earrings, so you know, Goff looks very attractive. Right. So what we are going to do now is that we've been talking about stenness and we've been talking about the changes, and I think to do stenness some justice, we need to sort of gently obviously we've done the highbrow stuff, which is fair enough. That's what we're meant to do with the lines. So it'd be nice to sort of, and I think this is for Richard, if Richard's got to leave soon, is to sort of give a bit more background on stenness and to sort of put it into the worldly view of things. So let's just go on to sharing the screen. And I do believe our Frenchman Henri's away. He is watching the no, he's gone over to Qatar to watch his favorite team, France. Well, you know, after all, he is French.
You are a storyteller.
I am a storyteller, and my stories must be told. In Germany, I'm Johann. In England, I am John. Everywhere I go, and in many places, I have many faces. Right, here we go. This is, again, if we type on this now, and if we go that, and we do this, and obviously the worldly view of things. And we looked at this last week, and we sort of understand the islands, which is a good thing. We know that there's lots of stones on the island. We know there's lots of Neolithic stuff on Orkney. We've already done that. But one thing that I should do geographically, which I didn't do on Tuesday, is as we've got the map, is we need to orientate ourselves like that. Hang on, what have I done? We need to orientate ourselves like that, and we need to go a bit further out, and we need to go like this. There's a reason for this. Okay, and you can actually start to see that that island of Hoy is actually pretty big. Right, remember we are now on the mainland of Orkney. Now the stories talk about Hoy and the two hillocks of Hoy. There's the hillock of Murrah, and there's a hillock in the center of Hoy as well. Basically, you know, the Hoy are the big bits of the islands, right, of the archipelago. When all this was one island, this was like a mountain range, right? But now what you do see in the distance from Stenness is actually Hoy, the two hillocks. And it's really interesting that when you go stand at Stenness, you can look over and you can align between the one hillock on the right of Hoy and the other hillock on the left of Hoy, right? You can align it. But when people are describing that Stenness and the stones at Stenness once aligned directly towards the center of these two hillocks to the dell in between, people seem to forget. But back in the day, there may have been trees in the way. So immediately, an idea of interpretation of Stenness has moved because the narrative has changed, because our understanding of the narrative has changed. And therefore, the mystical worldly view of these monuments is very, very different. And when I say monuments, am I referring to Stenness itself? Am I referring to all the monuments on Orkney? I'm actually referring to both, because each of the stones at Stenness represents something, a different ideal from a different time and a different understanding. Let's look at some more images from Stenness. Now we know where Stenness is, right? If we sort of go there and we sort of whip in there, and we've got the whipping boy of the whole landscape, the Ring of Brodgar. We've got the Loch of Harry and the Loch of Stenness on the left. The Loch of Stenness on the left is saline, and the Loch of Harry is freshwater. And this year, and the waters both meet in the middle, so it's like saline, fresh, going back and forth between that sort of causeway. Initially, there was no causeway. You had to go over when in a sort of muddy, sort of watery track. However, as we know in the Neolithic period, the world didn't look like this. There would have been two little sort of lake type things, not two lochs. And it was just like, it was full of landscapes of stone circles and settlements and stone alignments from this period, that period, and all the rest of it. One thing that we need to think of immediately. So there you go, standing stone there, but these are the ones that we're thinking of, standing stones of stenness. And when we talk about something known as the watchstone and the Odin stone is no longer with us, but the standing stone there is the watchstone. So if we refer to the watchstone as standing stone, they're where the word standing stone is there. 120, stand again. Let me get this right. 140 meters. That's what I was going to say. 1.2 kilometers. That's completely wrong. 1.2 kilometers is distance to the Ring of Brodgar, which is further up. 140 meters from these stones and there. And it's believed that there may have been another standing stone circle where that word standing stone circle is, but lost under the loch itself. And if we want to put this into perspective again, if we sort of Ness of Brodgar, well, that's where the archaeological excavations are. And the Ring of Brodgar, there it is. It's basically within walking distance. It's a brisk walk, 10 minutes, you're there. Well, 5 minutes if you're chased by the devil. So again, let's do some of the descriptor. Let's just chuck some more of the information on there, which is what I want to do. So, okay, back there, and we sort of go there, and we go there, and we go there. And what we do is we go there, and we go there, and we go there. And whenever you type in stenness, immediately you get images of the stones.
Mm-hmm.
And there we go. So, again, you can see this. And can you remember looking at the plan earlier on? These stones were actually much further apart and they've been put together.
Yeah.
People have mucked around with the archaeology.
Yeah.
So the only,
Mm.
yeah, it doesn't look right for a start. The only thing that's real about that is that stone standing up. The rest has been altered and changed. And who knows? To be honest with you, that doesn't look right. It doesn't even go. It's like doesn't sit right in my heart. Can you remember going to you were there, I think, and I hope, on the wonderful trip that we had to Hadrian's Wall, and we ended up with the Ring of Brodgar, and everybody had a free gift off me at the end.
No. No,
Oh
I
my
didn't
God,
go.
you missed out on a free gift. Oh my God.
No,
like I said,
the last one I went to was not Norfolk, I think. Norfolk, Norwich.
right, you went to that one, did you? Oh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. Oh,
Very
I've been with Jess twice as well, but no.
Did you?
Well,
Oh,
one.
right. Once, yeah. Right, anyway, cracking on. If we sort of go with the other image, and let's
It's
you see
Bill's
that?
been to everyone.
Yeah. No, actually, he did miss one. He missed the North Wales one.
Oh, right.
That's the only one he missed out on.
Well, the thing is, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm really understanding, from an archaeologist point of view, it's sacrilege, I suppose, moving things and interfering and that. But then you're talking about this line, aren't you? Like the line.
How the line of history is a continuous line of change, and change is actually part of the narrative story. Change is actually part of the story.
Yeah.
So can you remember earlier on in the lecture I mentioned about this guy I follow on YouTube, and he went into a German German bunker complex. Yeah. And I actually thought, what I thought when he was going to go into it, there would be swastikas everywhere, and it would be all concrete. But it wasn't. It was all wooden paneled inside. It was several floors. There were no swastikas anywhere. There were all the electrics and stuff. You could see all the cables and whatever. And obviously my interpretation was wrong. And I just the thing is, what we do in history, we aggravate ourselves to have a perceived cliche of understanding, and this is what the stenness has. Do you know, I went to the, all this stuff I'm saying is really relevant because I went to a monument down on Bodmin Moor. I think it was Bodmin Moor or Dartmoor. It was a circular stone with a hole carved in it. I can't remember the bloody name of it, but anyway, that stone that we're talking about had been moved, right? And it was clear. I'm telling people, we know when it was moved, but people think that monument has been like that since the Neolithic period. It never has been. It's what it is.
Yeah,
We feel we own the right to change the past, meaning that the past was like this, right? And in many ways, the past is never like lots of things, lots of ways that we want the past to be. And that's the upsetting thing. So stenness itself, the standing stones of stenness, we've already understood that the word stenness, stain, ness near water, or the headland. Well, actually, it would have been near water then. So a ness is a headland, the spit, a location. It's very descriptive, the word ness. Stenness is that Norwegian term meaning stone or beginning of the ness, or the stones of the ness. So this site itself could be. This is the surprise card. If I've got 4 aces, let's play the first one, right? So my first ace to play today is the fact that this is believed to be one of the oldest stone circle sites in Britain, right? And henge site. Basically, a henge site is a circular ditch, usually with a break in it, or a complete ditch, and then the bank is placed outside, right? That's a henge monument. And usually what you do, you put the bank on the inside, which isn't a henge monument, right? So out of Neolithic, the oldest stuff in the Neolithic period seems to come from Orkney. So if you want to think about the Neolithic period, Orkney has the oldest stuff.
Yeah. Oh well, that's something to remember, isn't it?
But it's something that challenges the narrative, because what we like to do is, I chuck a few things at this, right? Amesbury Archer, buried Amesbury, 2 miles east. Was it 2 or 5 miles east of Stonehenge? It can be 2 miles for the sake of argument. 2 miles east of Stonehenge, the Amesbury Archer, right near the Amesbury services or whatever. Yeah, he apparently had links with Orkney, right?
Oh.
And then when the Amesbury Archer body's found, they say, right, everything changes now because we know that he's got links with Orkney. He did this and he did that, right? But it's only one bloody body. It's only one single body, right? But then the argument is that proves our point. He's had links with of Orkney, right? So vis-a-vis, that goes back to what we said. The oldest stuff is in Orkney, or does it? Interesting. Various traditions associated with the stones survived into the modern era, or pseudo survived, because are any of those ideas or understandings about this circle actually really, really genuine, or this is part of the heart of Neolithic Orkney World Heritage Site. They are looked after by Historic Environment Scotland, and they are honoured by Historical and Environmental Scotland. It's a scheduled ancient monument. We actually pulled up the car one day, and I basically gave everybody helmets and stuff with the archaeology company logo on. Lucky I bloody did, because we had the UNESCO Heritage Police stop and ask us what the hell we were doing. And I said, oh, look, we're from archaeology company. Sorry, it's fine. I've never seen archaeological policemen, but they do exist. And they were okay. But the fact of the matter is, we were there to understand this sort of landscape, the landscape that is very, very special. Yeah. So identifies what can we say, what can we understand? It uses the terminology surviving stones. Or, well, actually, the word surviving stones, that's really interesting. These stones have survived the depravities that have occurred to them over the past 200 years. And we're going to use the word depravities because one of the things that I've been saying, one of the things I didn't know, one of the things I've been saying is that people on Orkney really treasure and love their history and archaeology. They don't necessarily understand it. Sorry, that's disrespectful, but I mean that in a respectful way. You don't need to understand it to love it, right? It's like, for example, we've all loved people, right? And we think, well, why do we love them? And we don't understand why we love them, but we love them. And then suddenly the penny drops and we love them because of this and that, right? And, you know, this is what we're talking about with people from Orkney. They do bloody know their history, but they just don't, they choose not to, or they don't want to, but they protect their history and archaeology. I had actually been saying this, but I didn't know it was true. But I understood that to be true, but now I know it's true because this is what I've read, right? So that is one of those things, Anne, is it not, that you don't really need to read everything to understand what's going on?
No.
So
No.
the word the word surviving stones tells me something different rather than these are the only stones surviving. These may have only been the only stones surviving. It's just that they may have been reorganized in a different way. And talk quickly.
Mm.
And do you want to say anything?
No, it's just they've been organised in a modern way, really. I suppose they've been organised to please the eye.
And actually, Anne, can you see a trick of the eye? Can you see the stone on the left? 1, 2, 3, coming over to one on the right. The one on the right is half the height of the one over on the left. But because of the image, because the angle that's been taken, that looks very similar to the height as the rest, but it's not, as half the height.
All right.
So even, and actually, you see a little bit of a curve with the 3 stones. I can see it. The one, So the way the angle's been taken, right, you can clearly see that there's an eclipsical, that's a nice word, eclipsical way that is actually feeding through. So there is a ditch around the outside and there's a bank, but it's now being filled in. So the idea of what you've got is not necessarily the embodiment of what there was, but it is the surviving narrative. And that's what we've got. We do have the surviving narrative. Do you know what? I was having a good old conversation with one of my children the other day, Kerry Ann, and I basically said, you know, it is about interpretation. And I said, look, Kerry Ann, I'm not a stage actor. She's a stage actor because she likes to, if she gets something wrong, then she can come on the stage the next day and get it right. I prefer to get it right on film and have the final version on film, and that's how the way it is. However, that's not what the past is about. The past is about, there it is, and there you see it. Not there you don't, there you see it. So the name of this stenness. There's different ways of saying it.
Yeah.
But hang on quickly. Stenness is the way we say it. In Orcadian dialect, it would be stenness, which is different from stenness. And actually, the way you have seen it spelt is stain without the E on the IS on the end. So the ness disappears. But stain is from the Norwegian dialect. What were you going to say, Anne, quick?
Oh, it was just spelled Stennis on the very old map. The Victorian map.
I'm glad you're doing a bit of reading as well. Good. Good. Oh yeah, you saw that earlier on, didn't you? So what we've got is it means, but this is a thing, stenness meaning headland or stone headland, but there's a problem there. And the problem is in meaning, right? And if you roll back my words, if this is the oldest stone circle site, it was there before the Ring of Brodgar. And as it was there before the Ring of Brodgar, the idea that it's a stone headland leading to the Ring of Brodgar is a load of nonsense, because it's the other way around. the ring of Brodgar leads to the ring of stenness because stenness is older.
Right.
So what we've done, we've completely dismissed the meaning of those words, even though that we know the meaning of those words actually comes in about 4,000 years after the site is actually a site in itself. So what we've got, the link between the two lochs, the one that you can clearly see on the left-hand side is the Loch of Stenness and the Loch of Carry. As you've got like a little nice road bridge there now, but that's not always been there. And obviously you've got this sort of the isthmus, the whole isthmus is actually full of a complete, I don't know if the word dearth is the right word to use. It's not the word I would use, but it's full of a complete package of the Neolithic period. But there's a danger there. We can never say that everything in the Neolithic period is shouting and screaming at the same time. Even today, there's a little elephant in the room wherever we go, right? There's a little old man in the room that we ignore because, metaphorically, right? We might put the Christmas tree up in the room, but we might actually not want to celebrate Christmas, or we might put the Christmas tree up in the room, or we might have the Halloween decorations still up. Some people do, right? But those are the elephants in the room. The main thing is the Christmas tree. The point is that what we've got to do, we've got to see everything relevant and living and breathing. And it means that we're connected to history rather than disconnected. Do you know?
Yeah.
When I've been to Orkney, I do get the following. I used to get the following remarks. I used to get. There were two. I've organised 3 excursions to Orkney, and I've been to Orkney 4 or 5 other times. Right, so 8 times, I can't remember. But anyway,
they know you well.
They know me well, but I know the landscape well. But if you look at those 3 groups that I took over, right, some of them being repetitory groups with the same people. I think Bill did all 3, Kathy did all 3, and then we had different people well. The point I'm trying to make is that what you do find is people saying, "Oh, they're stones. I've had enough of stones." All right, you could go in that box, and then you've got people saying, "Well, what do these stones mean? Why are there stones here? They're the same dates. Are they linked with this? Are they linked with that? What is this and that?" If archaeology is nothing, it's about stones, right? If archaeology has no understanding, you've got the stones, and then you can understand the archaeology, right? Those are very good points. Don't ever ignore the evidence, because what you're doing, you're wandering through a street with 1,000 people. Each of those people is interesting, but you're thinking them as all boring and have no consequential understanding to you at all, and you ignore them all as you walk through them all. But what you can't do in archaeology is ignore all that, and you ignore that at your absolute peril. So this is a Neolithic world, but a Neolithic world that speaks and chimes at different times and has a different sense of ownership at different times, and has a different sense of owning the world at different times. So what you've got to say is the importance of a world that was very individual and very complex and very meaningful for the people that actually created. Whether you want to see facts or fiction or me interpreting or me going with this and that, the level facts of the archaeology is that there are standing stones that have stood there for a very, very long time. If we go from the left to the right, 1, 2, not the one there, 3, stand again. 1 and 2 on the left, the one that's been re-erected in 1905 from being flattened in 1814, or was it flattened in 1814? Because it may have been the other stone, which was snapped in half, which is the one on the right. But 1, 2, and 4 are the stones that have stood there in time immemorial, except the 1 and 4 has been broken off in 1814. The fact of the matter is, the two on the left, 1 and 2, in my descriptor now, those ones could be interpreted as being representative of the people who erected them. Agreed? Well, yeah. That's the answer. Because that is the answer. We don't need any more science other than that. There's a lot more to talk about now. But the answer is that they were erected. Focus on the two on the left. 1 and 2 Neolithic period. They're erected in a Neolithic period. Forget about the rest. They meant something. They were something. They are something. They own something. They are to be acknowledged as something. And that is where we see the past. And those are the voices of the past that we can listen to. The echoes of understanding of the past. Because am I getting this mixed up, or am I back on Tuesday? Richard said this, or Peter did, about the sense that these stones talk about erosion. And the point is that even though it was Richard, even though these stones tell us, the ones on the two on the left, tell us that they speak to voices from the past, they would have been wider, they would have been taller, there would have been more stone to them. Would they have been more buried? Would they have been taller? And all these things. So even though we believe that we know what we're looking at for 5.5, maximum 6,000 years ago, right? Even that's not the story that they're telling us. Although the site today lacks the encircling ditch and bank, we go back to this, which really clarifies the point. Let's get on to the raison d'etre of this again. There's our little plan.
Mhm.
The site hasn't been completely excavated, and nobody's pointed something out on that plan yet, right? But we will go there. So we know that there was a ditch there because it's been excavated partially. We know there was a bank on the outside which can't be excavated partially because it's more or less gone, and part of it is covered in the car park, because it's a bit narrow. There's nowhere else to put the cars. The stones themselves, even though we think that they are mightily thick things, they're only 30 centimeters thick. They're only a foot thick. 1 foot thick. I should have actually asked you, I should have sort of said, Anne, how thick are these stones, right? Let's go with 2 meters thick. Let's go with 1 meter thick. Let's go with 2 foot thick. Not 1 foot thick, sharply angled tops. Now I've got to believe, I have to believe that those sharply angled tops have always been there, right? I've got to believe it. But there is one little fact that you're told at the Ring of Brodgar. These stones are channels for pixies and gods and all the rest of it. No, these stones are channels for lightning strikes. And a lightning strike may hit the tops of these stones and may cause them to be sharply angled tops. So, right. So, Anne, what we've got to do, we've got to rewind from my statement earlier on. But the statement earlier on, what we're looking at is what they wanted us to see. There is part of what they wanted us to see. And that's what's special. They meant something. They were erected. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're understanding.
Yeah.
These are the highest ones are 5 meters high. And my notes tell me that lots of archaeologists believe that all these other grey things, there must have been stones in all of these. No, there mustn't have been stones in all of these. Because I tell you what, right? When you dig a hole, right, and you put a stone in a hole, it's easier to put a stone in a hole, a big stone that weighs several tons. It's so easy to put a stone in a hole. But you try and get that stone back out of a hole. You can try and yank it down. You can rock on the bloody thing. You can do all sorts of things, right? But it's going to be very difficult to get out that stone. And surely to God, right, there would be more evidence to say there would be more damage. These pits would be a lot wider, and you know, there would be more movement and so on and
Yeah.
whatever, you know. And it's and the other thing as well is, right, this whole point about having these standing stones and thinking of them and thinking, well, you know, these standing stones represent families or people. They represent something. We can agree on that one. That's a fact. They represent something. Fact, 100%. They were erected by people. Second fact, 100%. Right. So we're going there, right? That's my second ace. We're going there. We can prove that. Right. But I am not going to go with these having stones in them at all. I don't need there to be stones in my mind. They may have actually had wooden posts. I tell you what, Anne, right? Do you know what I want to do? I want to put a wooden post in them, and you can put a bloody stone in yours, right? I'm going to put a wooden post in mine. And I tell you what, I can do a lot more with a wooden post. I can paint it, and the ochre paint will absorb better into the post. I can incise on it on a regular basis without having to use equipment that might need you to have little scaffolding and all the bloody rest of it. You know, a post you can bring down, a wooden post you can put back up like a flag pole, right? There's so many advantages having a post in these holes. And actually, look at number 12. You're not going to get much of a stone in that, are you?
No. No.
And before we go on, where's the elephant in the room before I talk about it? What's odd about that? What's odd about that? Where is it?
The thing in the middle.
Yeah, the thing in the middle of the elephant in the room. We'll come back to that. So what there is across, this is 44 meters across, right? Right, start again. The whole monument is 44 meters across. This is basically the platform, right, is 44 meters across. So basically from beyond 11 all the way to beyond 5, that's 44 meters across. And between number 5 and 11, that's 32 meters across. That's the platform, right? The measurements don't really sound as I think that might not be smack on, but obviously the 32 diameter from 11 to 5, we can go with that. So, and they say it's not exactly circular, it's elliptical, right? Oh God, I'm glad I got that out. Elliptical. It's an ellipse. So if you want to talk about creating a circle, right? It's easier. It's far easier to create a circle than it is to create an ellipse.
Yeah.
Basically, an egg shape.
Yeah.
So you know, you're thinking of this, and you're thinking, well, and there's a ditch, and then around that is a bank. And interesting enough, this faces over. We showed it earlier on. It faces over to the Loch of Harry, and it faces over to a settlement called the Barn House Settlement. Now, I need to go off on a tangent. I need to look at a plan, and I need to talk about another little story that links us in with the previous lecture, and then Goff will know exactly what we talked about earlier on, because there's a meaning to it. So, but what I've got to do, I've got to show you. I've got to show you two things, and I can do a little bit of a text. Then we're going to go on to Orkney, right? So if you want to know anything about Orkney, go to Orkney, which we're going to do in a few minutes. So what we're going to do, we're going to go again. So again, let's type in stenness, and let's type in the map. So what we've got, where are we? Whoa, let's get in there. Right. Okay, mice how down by there. The Barn House Settlement. So it looks over toward the Barn House Settlement. And there you go. The standing stone, the watch stone, and the Odin stone. We're going to do both of them. And you will understand. The watch stone is the one on the left. And the Odin stone once existed on the right. Now, the watch stone, which you'll see an image of shortly, was approximately, originally probably about 6 meters in height, is 5.6 meters high today. And how much is under the ground, I don't know. But when you think about these things above ground and below ground, above ground, the ground levels have changed throughout time. So we don't know. Maybe it was a meter higher then, more earth around it, was more stable, whatever. Right. Once there were at least 2 stones there. And we know that 1930s, the base of the Odin stone was actually found. It might be that there was another stone circle here. If we go back to our standing stones of stenness again, here we go. I love this here. Prehistoric monument in a wild landscape. We'll come to that wording in a moment. So what we've got is that within the circle platform, they found the remains of charcoal, cremated bone, pottery, and a hearth in the middle. That half in the middle of the monument. So if we go back again and we go there, half in the middle of the monument, there's a half in the middle of the monument. So that looks over towards Barnhouse, and there's a similar half in the middle of the monument, Barnhouse. Right. What we need to talk about is the settlement of Barnhouse is later. So that half, which is similar to the one at Barnhouse, probably coming later. It may have different meanings. And obviously what we've got is one of the radiocarbon dates from this site is actually at least dating the site to at least 5,100 years ago. And as somebody said, oh, Karl, why can't we get more accurate dates? Are we able to date the site back to 6,000 years ago? Well, yeah, we could, but there's a problem. What we need to do, we need to train a little vole to dig down a hole, right? Grab a little bit of charcoal in its little jaws, confirm that when it comes up, the little bit of charcoal actually comes from underneath the stone. That will indicate when the stone was first placed in the hole, giving you a near accurate date of when some of the stones are placed there. However, we don't know if all the stones were placed there at the same time, which is very unlikely, because if we want to compare it with Stonehenge was built over 2,000 years. So therefore, it's very likely that these standing stones may have been erected over hundreds of years, if not 1,000 years. So each of the dates of the standing stones would be different. The only way to get you decent dates for the standing stones would be to take the standing stones out of the ground and to use thermoluminescence dating to understand when the sun last shone on the ground surface, to actually work out the protons and the neutrons and the assortment of them, to understand what date that the stone actually went into the ground, covering the spot and the radiation, and therefore that gives a precise date for when the stones were placed into the ground. But you'd have to do it with all of them, therefore disturbing the archaeology and the meaning of the site. And therefore, if you take the stones out of the ground, the site, by the rights of some archaeologists, would no longer be deemed an archaeological site because the site's been too badly disturbed. Vis-a-vis, let's not do it. Oh, God. Anyway, shocking as that sounds, I would like to say this following thing, and before we say it, let's just do this. We're going to do the watch stone, the Odin stone, and then we're going to do a little bit more detail, and then at which point I'll be knackered. And Goff, you have to deal with the wrath of my daughter, who ordered me today not to do this class tonight so I can rest my voice, because I've got an acting interview next week. But I've done it for you, Goff, and Anne, and Richard. Anyway, so what we're going to do, I want to show you an image of the site, and then we're going to do those 2 stones, and we're going to get excited about one of those stones, the Odin stone, and you're going to go, ooh, why did this happen? Well, it's people. And that point about Mackay, which Goff doesn't know about yet, which he will learn about in a moment. So if we actually go to there again, let's go again. These are not the stones. My God, they're the wrong stones. What we got? Yeah, we go, and there they are with the sheeps. Do you know my sheeps would love it there? Do you know what? Right, my little bloody sheeps the other night. Right, I went to bed. Right, I was sleeping at 11:30, and my Nikki went bleh, because she wanted her supper. So I had to go out in a freezing cold, -12, to feed them, little buggers. Anyway,
Can't they feed themselves?
What? In the bloody snow when everything's frozen now?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, this is going to drive Goff mad, but I'm going to say it. The other day, I had to treat a baddie. Nikki's our 7.5, nearly 8-year-old sheep, right? So I had to deal with a baddie hoof, right? Basically, the flesh was detaching from the hoof. It was a bit fresh, so I had to inject her, and I had to sort of treat it and whatever. So she had a blue bandage, right? Mauer, my 4-year-old sheep, was not happy because only she's allowed to have the blue bandage.
Are they in a rest home? Are they
No,
resting? You know, like is it like a care home for sheep?
Well, no, but
Yeah.
basically the only person who needs to be in a care home is me. I'm the only one with special needs, apparently, according to them. Right.
Have they
So the
got those
heart,
little ears? Have they got those little ears?
oh, they're cute, yeah, and their little snouts. They're basically the size. They're basically the height of they're the height of a golden retriever.
Oh,
Now let's get on with this. The heart of Neolithic Orkney. Now this is looking the other way rather than towards Hoy. This is looking the other way. So you can see it how it's relatively flat, really. If you want to compare it with West Wales, that's as flat as anything. So the heart of Neolithic Orkney, it only became a World Heritage Site in December 1999. In addition to the standing stones of Stenness, the site includes Mice House, Skara Brae. They're all linked together in a Brodgar. It's all part of a landscape of significance. And this is what we say about Skara. This is what we say about this landscape, including Skara Brae, Ring of Brodgar, Mice House, and Stenness. Right. Statement of significance in 1999. It's worth listening to this. The monuments at the heart of Neolithic Orkney and Skara Brae proclaim the triumphs of the human spirit in early ages and isolated places. Can I just interject there? It wasn't an isolated place then. It was the heart of our world. And Neil Oliver would agree with that. They were approximately contemporary with the mastabases of the archaic period of Egypt, first and second dynasties. So when we think about it, 5,500 years ago,
yeah.
the brick temples, the brick temples of Samaria, again, 5,500 years ago, sort of Ur and so on, and the first cities of the Harappan culture in India, Indus Valley. And when I know that you've visited these sites with me, it's so good that I can mention them now and you know exactly where they are. You've got the ideas of these places. And a century or two earlier than the golden age of China, which alas, I haven't done as much as China as I wanted to. Unusually fine for their early date tick, and with a remarkable rich survival of evidence, thanks to Orcadians. We'll go on to that soon. These sites stand as a visible symbol of the achievements of early people, tick, away from the traditional centers of civilization. We've discussed that. Stenness is a unique and early expression of the ritual customs of the people who buried their dead in tombs like Mice House and lived in settlements like Skara Brae. I can discuss that more, but I'm going to leave that there because the end bit of that statement is sound. So what we're going to do now, we're going to type in the Odin stone. Right, so we're going to go there and we're going to go onto Google and we're going to type in Odin stone.
Odin.
Odin.
Oh, Odin. Oh.
Right, here we go. Odin stone. And there it is. Orkney jar. If anyone wants to know anything about Orkney, right, go to Orkney jar. Right, it's brilliant. I actually what I did when I was doing my first bit of my masters, I would go to Orkney jar and then I would look at the references, and that's how I'd research. This is how good Orkney jar is. You know, it's different from. It's not sort of. It's the sound.
We
sort
can't
of.
see it.
Aren't you on Orkney jar yet?
As we pass the bridge of Brodgar, we could dimly descry the standing stones of stenness
Carry on.
on the eminence, but today, looming in the darkness like a regiment of grim spectres. As we approached the stone of Odin, it appeared to be larger and more unshapely than usual, and all the ghastly traditions surrounding it flashed through my mind.
Around the
Orkney
fires.
peat fires.
Yes, that's a book.
Oh,
So
right.
that was written before 1814, and I've told you that they found the base of it. The Odin stone as an entity disappeared in late 1814, and that brings everything that we did in the earlier class now directly
Can we see
for
it?
us to see. We're going to see it now, and
Oh,
that's how it looked.
oh, it's got a hole in it.
It's
That's
got a
good.
bloody hole in it. Exactly. This is why as we approached the stone of Odin, it appeared to be larger and more unshapely than usual, and all the ghastly traditions surrounding it flashed through my mind. Now,
Ooh.
you know, when we got this place in West Wales, right, we actually shook the farmer's hand, and that was the contract. And then obviously we went through the legal stuff and all the rest of it. I thought the estate agent was off his bloody head, you know. But that's how people still do business in some places. You shake, and then obviously you go through all the legal stuff. But then it's a contract. To make a contract on Orkney before 1814, you shook your hand through that hole.
Oh.
And it was binding.
Oh.
Until the winter of 1814, a whole monolith, mono single lith, monostone lith, or a megalith, stood in a field by the standing stones of Stenness, overlooking the Loch of Harry on the right, and the Watstone overlooked the Loch of Stenness on the left. This stone occupied a particularly special place in the customs, traditions, and law of the Orcadian people. Key. That's what we were talking about. Thought to have been erected at least 5,000 years ago. At least. The Odin stone, or stone of Odin, stood approximately 2.5 meters high, with a breadth of about 1 meter. Now, this doesn't sound like the Watchstone, which was up to 6 meters high. Right? It doesn't sound like that at all. But there is something about these two stones. The tall stone, 6 meters, or 5.6 to 6 meters will make it. And this stone, which is 2.5 meters, add a bit more because, you know, Neolithic, 3 meters. A big difference, right? And then you think, well, actually, if you go to West Kennet, Long Barrow, and you head all the way along the West Kennet Avenue, all the way to Avebury, you have a fat stone, straight stone, straight stone, fat stone, you know what I mean, right, flanking each other.
Yeah.
There's descriptions of what they mean. The straight stone might mean a phallus, and the other stone might mean a womb, but actually it might mean something completely different. It's archaeologists come up with these ideas of a phallus and a womb because because most of history and archaeology has been written by men, right? And women coming along and say, well, does it really need to mean to be about a phallus? Does it really need to be about a womb? You know? And then you start to think, well, actually, the people in Orkney have made up their own bloody mind. So you could say that the hole is the same diameter of the width of the Watchstone, and you're thinking, but yeah. But then we go on to another aspect, and no descriptions of that have come to me. So we'll just move on. The location of the Odin stone was unclear until May 1988. So we believe we found it in the 1930s, when archaeologists surveyed over 8,000 meters of land surrounding the Stenness stones, uncovered socket holes for several stones, and finally the socket of the Odin stone itself. The hole where the stone once was. Oh, come on, give the story out. The whole monolith was shown to have stood approximately 140 meters to the north of the most furthest stone at stenness, between the stone ring and the current house, aptly named Odin or Odin. A socket hole for a second megalith would indicate that the Odin stone was once one of a pair. So obviously what we've got is that the Watchstone and the Odin stone, but they're indicating that there were other stones there as well, other sockets. So there was like an avenue or something. This is what the story's telling us. Yeah.
So they were like round, holes. Well, no, not round holes. Stones, like you said, with a hole in.
Yeah.
It would have been like cartwheels with no center.
Yeah, basically. But these are you'll see another image of the stone. It's different from that description. But what we're talking about is that it's likely that this stone may have been a glacial stone, so it's very special again. Anyway, moving on. But although the monolith had stood resolutely for millennia, the Odin stone destruction took less than a day.
Mm.
And that means that it's, I use the Second World War for a metaphor for lots of things. So because you understand, or we all understand the Second World War.
Mm.
And I'm going to use the metaphor. When Germany, when the war ended in Europe on the 8th of May, 1945, suddenly Germany was a different place. It changed overnight. Everything changed. And for a metaphor for this stone, everything within that landscape changed when the stone was destroyed in 1814. Everything changed. And you'll understand why everything changed by looking at that. Destruction. In 1814, the man who leased the land on which the stone stood, an incomer, and what did we call an incomer?
Ferry maker.
Close. An incomer by the name of Captain W. Mackay waged an attack on the stenness megaliths. A ferry bagger. At the time, the Odin stone and the circles of stenness and Brodgar still played a major part in common Orcadian tradition. Now, when you think about it, Christianity has been on Orkney for 1,000 years plus, right? But people still revered these stones. They were still part of their lives. Why not? Why can't they be part of their lives? You know what, right?
Mm.
I've been to Sikh temples, right? And I've been to Hindu temples, and I felt like I felt like welcome, right? And because I as you know, I used to be Hare Krishna, so for a very short time, but I used to love it. But anyway, and the point being is that you've got this temple within a city like Cardiff or within a city like Swansea. 1 minute you're in our world, and the next minute you're there, right? And the point is that everything works respectively, right? So the point being is that these monuments remained in the landscape, but people saw them within a respective Christian world, and that's fine. Nobody's objecting to that. However, this guy did. Because of this, large numbers of people visited the ancient sites regularly. According to Mackay, this was ruin in his land, so he set out to tear down the stones, all of them. He began with the Odin stone, which he destroyed in December 1814, allegedly using the stone fragments to construct a bier. It was not the stone was not used to construct the bier. We're going to carry on with the story. There it is. Look at it. It's weird. You can see the stone holes a lot smaller. This misguided ferry loper or ferry bagger, the dialect word used to describe non-Orcadians living in the Isles, was already not well liked, and his destruction of the monolith did nothing to improve this. You can imagine now, save our stones. The native Orcadians were so infuriated by Mackay's actions that various attempts were made to burn down his house and holdings. I love it. And there it is. You can see the description of that image there. It goes on to say that an early sketch from the 1800s by the Marchioness of Stafford, given the exaggerated landscape surrounding the stone, it is unlikely that there's a particularly accurate reproduction, but it indicates the stone was still there at the beginning of the 1800s. So, you know, this did happen. Then on Christmas Day, 1814, a local historian in Kirkwall heard of Mackay's plans and involved the law, who executed assist and suspension. In other words, a desist and suspension against him. By this time, however, Mackay had already toppled one of the standing stones of Stenness and obliterated a second. Basically, this is, you know, when we looked at the plan earlier on, that stone that was lying flat that was re-erected in 1905, and then the one that's got the top of it cut off, that's what we're talking about. This is his work in 1814. Yeah, this is what he did in 1814. So when we look at that other map from 1851, this is why it's so mixed up and it's so distorted. The monolith fate. Now, this is really interesting in itself. Though Orkney tradition maintained that the fragments of the Odin stone were used for building materials in the 1950s, the local antiquarian Ernest Marwick could find no evidence to prove that this was actually the case. He did, however, discover that the main portion of the stone, the hold segment, survived into the 1940s before this was completely destroyed. It's very interesting. It survived until the 1940s for two reasons. Alexander Keeler, that was the one who was excavating at Avebury, found that lots of the stones at Avebury had been smashed up. So she went around the village to gather the stones together, to glue them together. So this would have been the same thing that would have happened if the war wasn't happening at that time. So this section of the stone, Marwick, the historian Marwick, learned had been used as an anchor for a horse-powered mill shaft that moved around the parish of Stenness as the mill changed hands. When it was finally decided to replace the horse-drawn mill with an engine-driven threshing machine, the old mill was uprooted and lay around with the Odin stone fragment gathering moss. That's fine. Then the day came that the owner's son decided to tidy up and remove the old machinery. Unable to move the stone segment and ignorant of its history, he smashed it to dust. The unwitting destruction of the Odin stone fragment closed a chapter of Orcadian history, but it also roused the fiery wrath of his father, who exclaimed, "You had no damned business to break that stone. That was the stone of Odin. That came from Barnhouse. The stone of Odin. The stone of Odin." So that's a very tragic story about an archaeological monument and a wonderful piece of history that has been lost. So what we're going to do now, I wanted to mention a little bit about this watchstone, because, you know, that wouldn't be fair if we don't do that. So we're going to go to Orkney. And I don't even know if oh God, Richard is still with us, but if he is, we'll be doing another 10 minutes, Richard. So
what stone?
Yeah, well, if you type in the watchstone, here we go.
Watch. Oh, watch.
The watchstone. Yeah.
I'm not
right. Watchstone. Right. We go on that. We're not going to find it there. So here we go. There we go. Orkney. Right. We should get it on Orkney jar. There you go. Straight away. Most of this stuff on Orkney comes up straight away. So close to either side of the southern end of the bridge, which leads across to the northern promontory, stands a great sentinel stone. This was written by James Wilson, A Voyage Around the Coast of Scotland and the Isles in 1842. It doesn't look big, but that's quite a friggin' tall stone.
Straight.
Yeah, straight. Slab drop straight. One of Orkney's most imposing monoliths, the Watchstone, stands a short distance to the northwest of the standing stones of Stenness. Towering over the brig of Brodgar, the solitary stone giant stands at the point that the Stenness and Harry Locks meet, just over 5.6 meters high. We know the Watchstone was once one of a pair of standing stones outliers to the stones of Stenness, and obviously we've seen the other one. In 1930, the stump of the Watchstone's companion was unearthed, and obviously we believe that being the Odin stone, or at least one of the stones along that length. That's another bit of an odd image that shows it from a different angle. And it's very, very rare to get snow on Orkney, but when it does snow, it doesn't last very long. The stump, and obviously we're talking about the stump which was moved, the one on the other side. And we're talking about the stump measured 1.45 meters wide, and it was a 12.7 centimeters thick and at least 90 centimeters high. So that was removed in the 1930s. That is obviously my candidate for the Odin stone. And it was aligned exactly north, east, and southwest at the obtuse angle to the Watchstone. So its discovery led to the theory that the two stones were the remnants of a circle. So we're talking about another circle. Very interesting. And this is a thing. And we've got little bits of monuments. So this stone alone with the Odin stone was either an avenue of stones or part of a larger stone circle. And it goes on to talk about other stones. It goes on to talk about the Odin stone and Comet stone. And then what we then go down to is, if we look at that stone there, it says a midwinter connection. A local man, Charles Tate, has highlighted an interesting connection to the Watchstone and the midwinter solstice. From the Watchstone view in the winter solstice sunset, the sun disappears behind Ward Hill on Hoy. That's why we showed Hoy at the beginning. Hoy is that island in the southwest, which has two hillocks. And between those two hillocks would have been a dell, would have been a valley, right? So it says that the sun disappears behind Ward Hill on Hoy for a few minutes before being reborn briefly at the bottom of the hill's northern slope. A few days after the solstice, the sun sets behind Ward Hill on the island of Hoy, but this time it reappears in an horizon notch formed by the island's hills. This phenomenon prompted the idea that the stone was perhaps a marker for watching the sun's progress as it sets further and further south. The various marker points afforded by the Hoy Hills would allow the watcher to gauge the approach of the solstice. But the biggest problem is that if, for example, I'm just going to see if we can match this now with Hoy in the distance, if we've got an angle from that side. Hang on a minute. We've got no images because you'd have to stand in the lock. Looking over to, oh God, where are we? We've got no pointing towards Hoy, unfortunately, by the looks of it. They're all the other way, which is a bit of a shame. But the point is with this, and we'll make this point. If it was part of a stone circle, right, that wouldn't be the case. And the point is that there would have been trees in the way as well. So, there's different ways of interpreting the landscape and the world. And what we are going to finally do now, because I can see my voice slowly starting to go. So we're going to go back to our one here, give you a bit more history, and then we'll call it a day. Here we go. Now, I read this out on Tuesday. I don't agree with it because some of this is wrong. But I'm going to let you be the minds to work out what's right and wrong about this statement. It's written by the very eminent prehistorian Aubrey Burle. It's written in his book, Rites of the Gods, 1981. He's written a lot of publications, including quite a number of books in the Shire series of archaeological books. So we'll tell you what he says about Stenness, I'm not going to say what I think is right and wrong about it. That's up to you. A bit more text and that'll be a day. Here we go, Aubrey. Let us imagine then families approaching stenness at the appointed time of year. Men, women, and children carrying bundles of bones collected together from the skeletons of disinterred corpses and skulls. Mandibles, long bones, carrying also the skulls of totem animals. Herding a beast that was one of several to be slaughtered from the feasting that would accompany the ceremonies. If that's what you think happened there. Here we go. A bit more from the text. Even in the 1700s, the site was still associated with traditions and rituals, but related to Norse gods, i.e. the Odin stone named after Odin, and stenness, the stain, that's a Norwegian word. The site was also visited by Walter Scott, the writer, in 1814. Other antiquarians documented the stones and recorded local traditions and beliefs about them. I haven't mentioned this, the Odin stone, if you want, again, back to the Odin stone, I said that was significant. Pierced by a circular hole and was used by local couples for plighting engagements, sealing engagements by holding hands through the gap. It was also associated with other ceremonies and believed to have magical power. There was a reported tradition of making all kinds of oaths or promises with one hand in the Odin stone. This was known as taking the vow of Odin. We know that Mackay destroyed the Odin stone and he wanted to stop people going onto his land and he wanted to destroy all of them. He wanted to flatten all the monuments, causing outrage.
Yeah.
But this didn't happen. Now, the problem is, do you know, when we talked about the re-erection of the stones, if we want to find an image there, and we want to go, right, one stone, two stone, the one that was also destroyed by Mackay, that one on the left by the sheep, the stone toppled in 1814, was re-erected in 1906, along with some inaccurate reconstructions inside the circle. Oh, that's a shame.
You better put your, turn his microphone off.
Who?
Richard.
He's fallen asleep.
No, I haven't.
He's making noises.
Oh,
Oh no, he was saying, oh, that's wonderful. Carl.
So the other thing as well is one of the other stones that was re-erected, right? And I was going to show you this one now. I need to get the right angle. I don't know if I'm going to get the right angle. There's a stone in front of these here. We saw it on the plan earlier on. I don't know if I can get the right angle. Oh yeah, that'll do. You see that stone there? That was erected. That was re-erected, right? Somewhere else, sort of in front, but they decided to topple it over in the 1970s because that stone there had actually been on top of that one. So by putting that one upright, it would have been in the wrong place anyway. So they decided to sort of topple it. So in other words, what's happened, it was, you've got two stones that have been re-erected, some other stones being mucked around with in 1906. And then suddenly in the 1970s, they realized that one of the reconstructions of the stones is wrong. So it's constantly mucking around with history, but it's following the line of finally, if you've ever seen this stone circle before, the stones of Stenness are featured on the cover of Van Morrison's album, The Philosopher's Stone. And the Odin stone is depicted on Julian Cope's album, Discover Odin. The stones are also the setting for Lorena McKennick's song, Standing Stones, from her album, Parallel Dreams, concerning a pair of star-crossed lovers who meet at the Odin stone, only for the man to meet a tragic fate. It's usually the woman who meets a tragic fate, but the man that does this time. On that note, I am Odin and I am Stenness stoned out. Interestingly enough, we've done a full what is it? We've been doing this from sort of 6:15, so we've done a whole 2 basic half hours on this bloody site, amazingly enough. Right, on that note, we're gonna see if there are any questions, and the world will be our oyster, or Welsh. Right, okay, let's start off with Dickie. Anything you'd like to say, Dick?
No, I'm happy enough with I say it's a shame all these things can, be altered with time. But,
And the sadness is deliberately altered. That's the thing.
yeah,
You know, there's a stone up a Stridvasta, and that the Mynheer stone or Manleer stone, and it's this big chunky stone, and we know that there were carvings on it, Latin carvings on it in about the 1200s, and you start to think, were they actually carved off? You know, why is our past completely? When you destroy the past, you can't bring it back. Anything else, Richard, before we go on to Anne?
no.
Um,
I think.
and on behalf of Goff, Anne, we think you're being very sensible these days. Anne, anything you'd like to say?
Just it all kind of it's been interesting because it's another land and it's not Scotland, but it's somewhere that's been influenced by Norway and Norwegians, Vikings, and it's connected to Wales and Ireland and their mythology, not just mythology, but maybe the way the land has been formed and how they've used it, how they've all used these stones, that are left. However,
this sense of
whichever
amazing
way.
connection, I would agree with you, yeah.
And it's very, and today there were loads of pictures of Stonehenge, and they were talking about the winter solstice, and I asked for pictures of Welsh archaeology sites with some sunrises on, or something, that it's not as popular, you see. People, but we could get mine. What's that Welsh site? Tell me.
Pentre Ifan.
Where?
Pentre Ifan.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I could find a winter solstice one there.
Well, you might actually be able to find one with Tinkinswood in. It may actually be one I've taken. So have a good look.
Tinkinswood, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
or even
it
St. Lithens. St. Lithens, yeah, St.
I
Lithens or
know that
Tinkinswood.
Runrig is a Scottish group, and they were very, very into, the the nationalism of not nationalism, but the history, the ancient history, and a lot of their songs were about that. And I think we all hanker for, the old ancient ways, the wisdom. I don't know.
I was actually starting to think about just wandering around in costume from the 1700s. I'd be far more happy.
Yeah. Oh, well, why don't you?
I think I might do it.
Yeah. I always wanted to wear like a long dress,
Well, I'll make sure I'll make sure I loan it off you, Anne. Right, okay, so okay, Goff.
I think it's very, very interesting. It's a positive gold mine of Neolithic stuff, isn't it, Orkney?
Massive gold mine, exactly. We might alter next week away from Orkney, but we're obviously going to come back to Orkney again. So we'll see how next week goes. And next week, I believe, is the last one before Yuletide Christmas. So we'll have to work that one out. but there will be a recording that will be placed out online.
I won't be here next week. Going up to Yorkshire,
Ooh,
Ah,
see my
is
grandchildren.
is that with your beautiful daughter?
Yes, I want to see the grandkids. Yeah.
nice.
Good. I actually, Goff, I saw you with one of your I saw a photograph of you with one of your grandchildren earlier on, so
Yeah,
must be about 2 now, yeah?
exactly. Too. Yeah.
Mm,
Well done.
Good.
Yeah. Well, look, have a good Christmas, all of you.
Yes, we will. We'll try.
And
There's a few
what we'll do,
elephants
Goff,
in the room, but we'll try.
Yeah.
there'll be
And
2. Yeah, go on.
keep taking the pills, all right?
Pardon?
Keep taking the pills.
Oh, yes, I will.
So what I'll do, there'll be two pre-recorded classes placed out, one for Christmas week and one for the week after. And I haven't actually got a plan this year at all. I'm just gonna double check.
Do you want any money, Carl?
Don't ask
Oh,
him.
yeah.
Him.
Oh yes.
I haven't
Oh, do you
paid
know what,
it.
Goff?
I
Yes,
haven't paid it.
if you wanted to send over your monies, because I will be asking, but if you wanted to send over
I just haven't paid for
Yeah.
the 6 o'clock ones this
Right.
term.
yeah, if you can do that.
Fine.
What's that?
Well, I'll pay for mine.
Yeah, and I'll pay for yours. So, okay, Anne's mentioned the money, Goff, so we've got to do it now. So there'll be a class next week, right? There's one class next week,
Right.
and then the following week there won't be a class because it's the 29th of
Yeah.
December. So that's going to be a pre-recorded one that'll go out to everybody, and then it's we'll be back on the. So it'll be 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Hang on, 2nd Monday, Tuesday. Well, we're back on the 4th, isn't it? Is that right? Hang on, I'm lost.
Oh,
So 2nd,
Right, the 4th. Yeah.
yeah.
yes, the 4th, yeah. No, it's the 5th.
Oh, is it?
It's the 5th, yeah.
Right. The lecture,
Actually,
you want the money by then?
yeah, I want the money by then, otherwise I send the lads over.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Hey, guess what? If you don't send me the money over by then,
Sorry.
I'll send Jim over.
Okay, go Gust. He's coming down the chimney near Christmas Eve.
I'll burn the.
Have a Merry Christmas then.
Christmas, Richard.
All right, then.
Bye.
Okay, Goff, before you go, have a Merry Christmas and thanks for your support this year, and I'll see you in the new year.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye, Goff.
Um,
No, have a good time. Have a good time. Right, everybody's going now, are they? Richard,
Yeah.
I'll see you next Wednesday.
Okie dokie.
Take care, Rich.
Cheers, Carl. So long.
Yeah,
take
then,
care.
Richard. Bye.
Cheers,
I'll
Anne.
probably be here
Nice
as
Christmas.
usual.
I'll see you next
Take care,
week.
Richard. See you next week.
Okay.
And send some shekels. Send some shekels over as well. I'll send you soon.
All right. Okay. Ta-ra then. All
Take
the
care.
best.
Bye.
See you
Bye-bye.
next
Bye-bye.
week. Bye.
See you next week. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Okay, thanks everybody for liking. And my daughter's gonna bloody kill me. I shouldn't have been teaching tonight. Yeah, I think it was just a bit too before Christmas and so on. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh, anyone who are interested, don't forget, big up Britain's Hidden History Facebook and Britain's Hidden History Uncensored. Join both Facebook pages. We're just trying to do my bit for good old Ross Broadstock and Charles John. Okay, thank you very much. I'm just gonna obviously end this now. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Night night, folks. Bye bye. Night night.